So, for anyone wondering, how long have I been interested in studying into different spiritual practices, spiritual beliefs? Alright, it has been, as far as taking it seriously, over a decade. Reason why? To be blunt, the coma. The coma. I literally cannot go a day without going ahead and feeling right here and feeling the same spot where a bone saw ended up sawing into my skull to relieve some of the pressure to my brain. Alright? I don't know how long I was in that coma for. Because one thing I can tell you, imagine, alright, imagine the duration of a show, alright? Like an hour, alright? So think, how would most people perceive an hour? Well, they would think like 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right? Now, when you are in a coma, it seems like there is very little brain function. But ultimately, the brain does anything that it can to survive. It will do everything possible to try to pull you back. It literally is the strongest organ you have. It controls everything internally. It controls your capabilities externally. Alright? You hurt that, and somehow or another, it will always have an effect. Alright? So when you end up in a coma, we're talking not being able to move your body, not being able to wiggle your toes, not being able to wiggle your fingers, not being able to speak, not being able to open your eyes, not being able to open your mouth. Alright? No motor function whatsoever. Alright? Inability to be able to communicate whatsoever. The amount of time that ends up passing. That 1 hour block from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, it is the equivalent of years passing in duration. Alright? So to go ahead and explain the factor that while you are in that coma, you are still, I guess in a way, lucid dreaming. In a way, you are still having an entire existence where years and years and years and years and years and years and years can go by. Alright? There is so much that you're capable of doing. Ultimately, your imagination, your mind, is still able to go ahead and do things that ultimately you yourself, not in that coma, are not physically capable of being able to do. Alright? And ultimately, the perception of time is different. Alright? So to then go ahead and explain, while I was in that coma, there was an entire existence to have to go ahead and explain, while simultaneously, I was able to hear every conversation that was going on outside. So imagine, quite literally, very rarely are you actually not hearing somebody going ahead and like speaking through the equivalent of what would be like the think of like the loudspeaker at a grocery store, you know, clean up on aisle 3. Now imagine every conversation that you end up having with that individual that is in that coma, hearing just blared just randomly. All right, You never know when, but there's going to be an entire conversation that no matter what you hear, no matter how fucked up it is, no matter how endearing it is, either which way, you do not get to respond. All right? Somebody could literally say, I thought I would have had more time with them. I thought everything would have been okay. I took them for granted. Or whether it ends up being, that motherfucker was a prick. Got exactly what the fuck deserved. Either which way, you do not get to give input. You do not get to give comment. All right? So while that's going on, you are living in your own little fantasy land. Your own internal monologue is going. Fully comprehensive of what's going on, while simultaneously not being able to comprehend why or where.